Hi everyone, this is Holly, and welcome to my fall series. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. DIY number 1. For this craft, you're going to need this big orange pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. It's one of my favorite ones because it's big and it comes with that big metal leaf, which I have used for a lot of DIYs. And the Farmer's Market calendar. Now you don't have to have the Farmer's Market calendar for this craft. There are plenty free printables out there for Farmhouse Fall. I think there's even a free printable with the red truck as well. So don't get upset if you don't have the calendar. You can still do this craft and it comes out really nice. Here's a little trick I just threw in there to show you guys. In case you buy these sanding blocks, I never replace mine. I just buy the cheap sandpaper that comes, I think I found like 40 of them for $1 at the Dollar Tree once. I bought the whole package and I just cut it, glue it on there, and it works great. So that's a nice little money saving tip. So you're going to take whatever image you choose and lay it down like you see me doing here and trace it out. Don't worry if you don't get all the letters or if the image doesn't fit perfectly. That's just fine. It adds more charm to that rustic farmhouse look that we're going for. Now here I am starting my favorite technique, which is to tear those edges up and make them look like they're sanded. I kind of give them a head start here by tearing. You don't have to do this. If you have a really rustic look, I think it looks best. But if your house is more modern farmhouse or chic, or maybe even industrial farmhouse, you know, even if it's rustic farmhouse, you do whatever makes you happy. It doesn't have to be done this way. It's just this is the look that I have in my house, so I'm trying to stay in the same theme, but both ways would look good. It's all good. So I'm tearing it right there. I tore out the hole, of course, at the top, so you don't notice that it's a calendar. And now I'm going to go ahead and slap some white paint. It's just apple barrel acrylic white paint down on the pumpkin. Now the reason I'm doing this is because these calendar pages often tend to be see-through, where you can see the calendar on the other side. And knowing this, I don't want it to darken up with the brown shade underneath from the pumpkin. Now that's my choice. If you don't mind yours a little darker, you can go ahead and glue it straight down onto that pumpkin. But I just wanted to start off with a light surface to try and prevent that as much as possible, because I am going to go ahead and dry brush some burnt umber over the top to distress it, and I like that contrast. So that was just my choice. You guys can do it however you want and make it happy. And it, you know, I'm using the school glue again, so if you watch my previous video, I talk about how school glue, when you put it down, you glue your image down and you hit it with a wet sponge, it actually starts to crinkle up. So it does the exact opposite that Mod Podge does. Mod Podge, when you hit it with a wet sponge, it tends to help you get the wrinkles out. But I want mine to crinkle up, because when it crinkles up, I get those little high edges here and there, and when I go to sand it and remove those edges, it helps it look a little bit more like distressed old paint on the sign instead of just paper. And I'm zooming in here to show you how you can see that calendar through it. Now I'm drying it, but unfortunately even when it dries you can still see the calendar. Now here's how I clean up the edges. I use a little sandpaper just like you see me there, and I just sand the edges to get a nice clean edge on the paper. But you're going to see me do a little trick here in a minute to hide that calendar, because we can't have it with a calendar. That definitely doesn't pass for an old farmhouse sign, you know, with numbers and squares in the background there. So you're going to see how I handle that, and it works brilliantly. I'm using burnt umber right now just to distress it for a change, because it's a pumpkin. I thought we could get away with a little bit more of a brown warm tone, and here I go. You're just going to take your burnt umber or whatever color you choose to distress this with and do a nice light dry brushing over the surface. Now I'm going to zoom in on a moment so you can see how well that works. Check it out. You cannot detect any calendar markings behind that paper now at all. So just do it that way and everything will be good. You won't see anything and the sign will come up really high end for you. And now I'm just going to go ahead and seal it up with some Mod Podge. And now that that's all dry, I'm going to use this Dollar Tree wire in the color black And I'm just going to tie some little curly cubes on this just to give it a little bit of that feeling of a leaf. But again, I'm going for rustic farmhouse, so I want to keep this sign as simple as possible. The red truck signs tend to be kind of busy anyway and bright, so I chose to kind of mellow it out a little bit by just choosing to use some wire at the top to decorate the stem with. You can go ahead and add some leaves if you want, or you can keep that silver metal leaf and use that. I used that for another DIY, so it wasn't available to me, but that would definitely go really well with this sign too. And you can also wrap your wire around whatever size pen or pencil or whatever you find to get it the size you want, if you want it a little tighter or a little looser. But here it is, you guys. I love this sign. It is so rustic farmhouse and cute, and I hope you guys get a chance to try this out. DIY number 2. For this craft, you're going to need a jar with a lid. Now I'm using an old candle lid here that my son got me for Christmas one year. It was a really good smelling vanilla scented candle. It smelled almost like Play-Doh, and the smell did not wash out, so I was so grateful for that, because the whole time I'm crafting, I'm so enjoying the smell here, you guys. It was so nice. And I'm just applying a little bit of that Kilz primer, K-I-L-Z primer again, because it sticks really well to glass, and I want to use it up because I bought a gallon of it and it's drying out, so I want to make sure I try and use it, and it makes a really good craft paint. And I applied it to the lid as well, and as you can see, it left naturally nice streaks on that glass. So we're going to be making a pumpkin with this candle glass holder here. This is another Pinterest inspired craft. I saw it. It was one of those simple rustic crafts again that was so cute. So I'm going to try my best to try and imitate it here. And I'm just taking a little bit of the apple barrel paint in the color khaki and burnt umber and dry brushing it on to add a little bit of texture, color, and dimension. And if you look at my paint palette, you can see I've added a little bit of black there and a little bit of water and just moved it to the side to make a super quick stain for the lid. It's nice and watery that way, and it kind of cuts down a little bit of that reddish in the burnt umber to make it look more like an antique walnut. That's going to be the top. And now I'm just taking a regular old pencil and drawing my pumpkin grooves on it. Now you can paint these if you want, and you can use any color you want. It's just for my look, I thought gray was perfect, and so a regular old pencil will work just fine. For those of you that watch my fall video with a coffee can where I made a faux wood lid and I used a wine cork and cut it at an angle to imitate a pumpkin stem, this is the other half, so it's also cut at an angle. Now I give it a light stain, and I don't mind if a little bit of the design shows through because it actually gives it more character like a pumpkin stem when you look at it, so it's all good. And now I'm going to take the little cutout there from the Brave calendar. I decide to Mod Podge that on because it has the same color tones. I just think that will be really cute. But the one on Pinterest did not have any imagery on it. So if you don't want to do this, or if you don't have that calendar, or you don't have an image that you want to use, don't worry about it. It looks super cute, just plain too, as a rustic pumpkin. On Pinterest, she goes ahead and puts raffia on top of the lid and a little pine cone and some leaves, and it looks so sweet. This was a last minute change that I did to it, and now I just dipped my finger in a little bit of water there, and I'm just smoothing out those wrinkles and adding some Mod Podge to the lid. And I do want it to have a little bit of a rustic like brown frame here. I'm not looking for like an ink stain type thing. I'm just looking to give it a definite little frame that's painted on. I think that's so cute. And I want some raffia and leaves on the top like the one I saw on Pinterest. So I'm adding that. This is also a free DIY, you guys, if you have the jar at home, and you can always use plant life outside as well to decorate it. I used to do that all the time, and when the plant life dried out, it still looked good. It just looked different. And it's a 3-tier decor piece as well because it fits beautifully on my 3-tiered tray. Now this is one of my husband's top 3 fall DIYs, you guys. He loves this, and it did come out totally cute, and you don't need a Dollar Tree to make one. And now to announce the Farmers Market calendar winners. Again, we had so many entries, you guys, 1,500 plus. And I wish I could give all of you a calendar because I love you guys all so much. I'm happy I got 18 out there to 18 happy people. And I want to thank the 4 ladies again who sent them in. It was so generous and kind of you. So now for the winners. Congratulations to Beth Hughes. Congratulations to Beverly Yarborough. Congratulations Brenda Elaine Waddell. Congratulations Jamie Ann. Congratulations Lily E. Congratulations Michelle McAllister. Please get in touch with me within 7 days to give me your address so that I can get these calendars out to you. And of course, happy crafting. DIY number 3. For this craft, you're going to need the largest stovetop cover, the Be Brave calendar, some florals, and some nautical rope. Now, you don't have to use this calendar. You can always use imagery of your choice if you don't have this calendar, but if you do, this is a great DIY. And I'm just going to cut out the pumpkin from that calendar. And I'm going to lay down the large stovetop cover on top and cover the image as much as possible and trace around it. Now make sure you put your pencil right at the very edge there so that you get a nice clean fit, and I'm just cutting it out. Go ahead and grab your Mod Podge, and we're going to be Mod Podging that image down on the stovetop cover. And just a reminder, it's the largest stovetop cover here. I love stovetop covers, you guys. When you're in the Dollar Tree, always pick those up because I always have some great idea for them. I think they are so much fun. And so we're going to Mod Podge it down. We're going to let it dry. And after it dries, we're going to go ahead and edge it with a little bit of that nautical rope. Now you can use thinner twine if you want. I liked the chunky twine because the pumpkin itself is rather big, and the little sections where the grooves are on the pumpkin, they also look kind of chunky. Like the whole thing for me gave me kind of like a chunky feeling. I don't know why. So I just wanted to stick with the chunky nautical rope, but anything around the edge here that you guys like, you can put in there. Be creative and have fun. And I'm just gluing it down. Now you will take the florals of your choosing, whatever they are, and lay it down and center it so that you get the right balance on either side with that spray coming out. And then you're going to put a little hot glue, and you're not hot gluing it to the stovetop. You need to add that duct tape I'm doing right there because that's what it's going to stick to. All you're doing is hot gluing it so that you can stick those stems together so that you have the right measurement. At least that's how I needed to do it. If you guys can do it by just looking or measuring, feel free, but I tend to do everything by eye, so for me I need to lay it down. And now I'm taking some Dollar Tree twine, and I'm just going to spin it around that center to cover those stems and that hot glue. And the purpose of that twine is to make it more adhesive for the hot glue. So the duct tape creates a surface that hot glue likes, and the twine creates a surface that hot glue likes, and voila, you can hot glue it on the top of that stovetop cover without fighting it to keep it on, because otherwise it's just going to probably pop off. Now you could use a more permanent glue like an E6000. There's a couple out there now, you guys, they have lots of neat glues, but if you want to do that and wait a little bit longer, that might work, I'm not sure. And you can also use masking tape. I just chose to use duct tape this time because it was black, but honestly any hardcore sticky tape will work. And here I am taking some acorn lids that I collected last fall for my crafts, and I'm just gluing them on the bottom because I wanted a really natural rustic look. And I decide there's a little bit too much metal showing for me, so I take the Walmart twine this time and add another row on there. Now I did hold the thicker nautical rope up, and it was just a little too thick. It started covering too much of the image. You know, it made the image look too far away and stuff. It was, for me, now you might like it, but to me it made it look too far away, and that wasn't the look I was going for. So I went ahead and did the Walmart. It's a little thinner twine there, and I'm using a silicone makeup spatula. It's available at the Dollar Tree. If you can't find it there, it's in a link below in my description box. You can find them on Amazon. You can also find them at Walmart. And right now I'm just taking 2 burlap ribbons from the Dollar Tree. One is in the traditional burlap and the other one is in green burlap, and I'm just going to make a bow for the top to cover the string that I'm going to loop through on this later in the video, and that will be looped around that little handle there, and that's how I hang my little wreaths or pictures. And it does a really great job at covering up the loop there. You can see it. And when I hang that on the wall, you guys, I decide it just looks too flimsy. I mean, you've got this big, majestic frame and then this tiny little thing with a little bit of greenery. So I decide we need to make it go big or go home, as they say. So I take a Dollar Tree wreath form and more of my Walmart green florals, and I do an entire wreath. Now I'm just sticking it down in there. These wreaths are perfect for that. I've been doing that for decades. And I don't use hot glue because I usually don't want to damage my florals or my crafting supplies, so I can reuse them if I want to. And this works fine. You can also use wire and tie them on. But what I've been doing, I'm going to show you my dirty little secret here in a minute. I'm going to flip this over and show you what I've been doing for 20 years. I put something down like this on a wreath, and it could be a pizza pan or something bigger with a bigger wreath form, but I just use little branches from whatever florals I put around, and I used masking tape to tape them to, you know, again, the pizza pan or the picture or whatever I want them to stick to without ever doing anything permanent like glue. And then I pull that little tiny loop that's on the stovetop cover through the wreath form so that it can hang on that little handle. And this is what I've been doing for years. It's been working for me. You can't tell. I mean, no one's going to lift it up and look behind to see if you glued or if you taped. But this came up so high end, and it's so beautiful. And I think it's a perfect transition craft from fall into Christmas. If you do neutral fall, I'm going to go ahead and stick a Christmas seed in there for Christmas. I'm not even going to remove it. It's in my hallway, and it's going to come up so beautiful for both seasons. And I just love this. DIY number 4. For this craft, you're going to need a pumpkin shape of some kind to trace and some material of your choosing. Now I'm using a really thin cotton mesh. It's 100% cotton. It's kind of see-through. Really brilliant for going through ink printers. I'm not doing that today, but for those of you that have been following my fall series, I made some pillows that way. This is the same material. And I'm putting the little pumpkin down. That's part of that 6-pack pumpkin you get at the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to trace it a little bit bigger than what that pumpkin is to allow a seam allowance on the side there, because I want these to have a little fringe on the edge. Now this craft goes out to the many of you who wrote me asking me to show you how I made the garland on my mantle in my early intro on my earlier videos. I show a garland that's hearts. It's made out of the buffalo check material from the Dollar Tree and some ticking stripe that I just painted on an old pillowcase, you guys. That wasn't real ticking stripe. I painted that on, and they're alternated every other. This is how I did it, but this time we're going to be making a fall/Halloween garland for my mantle. So I cut out a total of 7 pumpkins. Here I'm using a little bit of clean water, and I'm going to add just a little tiny bit of orange paint in there to make a dye. So I'm going to be dyeing these orange, and I want them to be a soft orange because I kind of like the fall colors, and I also like the neutral fall, so I've got kind of a combo thing going in my home. Nothing's really super bright or really super loud, so this was my compromise. Since these are going to be reversible for Halloween, I definitely wanted to go with orange. So I'm just brushing it on. Now there's several ways you can do this. I've done it where I've put some water in a spray bottle with a little bit of paint and shaken it up, and then laid them all down on top of a sheet and just sprayed them like you spray paint, I guess, and that's done the job really quickly as well. And I've left it outside to dry. But I was deep in the middle of a Hallmark movie when I made these, and honestly I didn't want to go outside. It was more fun for me to stay there and make them, so you can do it either way. And now I'm just taking a little bit of the color Territorial Beige by Apple Barrel Paint, and I'm doing the stems, and I'm edging the edge of these little pumpkins with that color as well. Now one side is going to be a pumpkin for the fall season and Thanksgiving, and the other side is going to be a cute little old-fashioned vintage jack-o'-lantern. Now this is going to be my final video in my fall series for 2020. However, you all voted overwhelmingly asking me to do a vintage Halloween video before I transition to my Christmas series, so that's what we're going to do. And I thought this would be a totally perfect DIY for that, because it's fall on one side and it's going to be vintage Halloween on the other. So right now I'm just lightly drawing on a jack-o'-lantern face with pencil. Now I'm deliberately not going to draw this face perfect. It's going to be imperfect. It's going to be a little off center here and there, at least I'm trying to, because part of what makes Halloween look very vintage is everything was very homemade, which means you don't have that cookie cutter look where it comes from a store. So that's my first line of attack here to get things to look vintage. It's got to look definitely homemade. So I'm using a Sharpie brown pen here just to go over everything. I found that color was dark enough. In fact, I wish I had had a lighter Sharpie pen. I tried a gray Sharpie pen that was too light. I think black will be too dark. If you want that really strong contrast, go ahead and use black, but brown worked for me. And on this side where the pumpkin is, I decide to use the Territorial Beige paint to go over those lines. I actually think that looks more rustic, more farmhouse, and more vintage than the pen would, because the pen was darker. You know, that's great for Halloween, but for fall and Thanksgiving, I want a much softer, more mellow look on the pumpkin side. And that's what we have when we're done. Now here's the little trick I used, because even though you don't want them exactly the same like a cookie cutter, you still need a pattern to trace. So you use the dark first ones that you made. So I'm using the one that I just drew, and the other one I will use with the painted side, and I'll put that underneath the new ones so that I have a pattern. And even though I have a pattern that I'm tracing and recreating, you can see when I laid that little jack-o'-lantern down on the right hand side, his eyes don't match exactly the one below, his teeth don't match exactly down below, so they come out just that little bit different to make them look authentic vintage, but they're enough the same that it looks like somebody tried to make a matching garland. So it just comes out super, super cute, and now we're just finishing it up. The next step is to glue the stem first, and then you're going to be gluing around the edges, leaving a little bit open, about 2 inches, so that you can stuff these. Now you're not going to be over packing these with filling. I'm using some filling from an old pillow that I have, but if you have cotton, that would work just fine. Just make sure you take your cotton balls apart and kind of spread them with your fingers so it's nice and wispy, so you don't get lumpy. And you're just going to put enough in there to give it a little bit of a puffy look. You're not going to do like a full round ball unless you want to. You want to do that, that's fine. Do what makes you happy. But I just want these to be ever so slightly puffy so that they look kind of cute, like little quilts right there. That's what we have at the end. And here it is, you guys. These came up so cute and super cozy. They really capture the magic of the season and childhood, and I love these. If you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. It really does help YouTube notice my channel. And I want to take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy, beautiful fall season. And of course, until the next video, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.